Hello everyone, this is the 7th video of my database management systems question video series. Today I am going to do the 7th video of the second day. Let's go to the question. Here's the question list. Here's the 7th question of the second day. Here's the question. I'm going to read the question first as usual. There's a computer company called Next Computer. All marketing in the company is done using a computer software. The software is used with the database to store data. The product table of the database is given below. Here's the product table. You can see there are 5 attributes and let's see what we have to do in this question. Create a database named Next Computer to save the data in the product table. As usual, we have to create the table first. Here I'm going to use HeidiSQL in order to do this. In order to answer this question, here's the HeidiSQL browser. I already explained about the HeidiSQL browser in my previous video. You can watch that video and come back after you complete that video. Here I'm going to create the database called Next Computer. So in order to do that, you have to right click on the connection. Here's the connection to MySQL server, and you have to right click on the connection and then create new. Click on the database button. Here we have to create this is the window we use to create databases, and here we have to enter a name to our database. Here's the name, Next Computer, and I'm going to click on the OK button. After this, the HeidiSQL browser will create a database for us. The database is was created, and I'm going to refresh the I refresh the database list, and let's find our database. Here you can see the database Next Computer. We completed our first part of the question, and here's the second one. Create a table named product in the database. Follow the instructions below to create a table. Here we have to create a table inside our database, and it's called product. Here are the attributes in our table. You can see there are 5 attributes in this table, and first one is ID. It's also the primary key, and it's going to be auto incremented. That means when we are adding new records, we don't need to add the primary key or add the ID manually. The MySQL server will automatically increase the value of the previous ID and then store it in the new record. That means it's going to be incremented. So we can do that in MySQL databases, and we have to do that in it. And here's the data type int, and here's the second one, brand. It's going to store string values. That's why the data type is varchar, and it's going to store a string value up to 45 characters in a single cell, and model is going to be the same as the brand. And here's the quantity. QTY means quantity, and data type is int. That means it's going to store integer values in that attribute. And here's the price, and the last attribute, price, is going to store double. That means it's going to store floating points, not like the integers. It's going to store floating points in it. And here we have to create this table. Let's go to our HeidiSQL browser again and create this table. Here we have to right click on the on our database and create new table. We don't right click on the connection to our database. We just right click on the database we want to create the table, and here we have to enter the name to our table. I'm going to name it product, and here's the area we are going to we are using to insert attributes or define attributes in our table. And here's the add button. We can add attributes by clicking on this button, and I'm going to define the first attribute ID, and its data type is okay. It's going to be int, and it should be the primary key. I'm going to define the primary key by right click on this record or right click on this attribute and create new index primary key. Okay, you can see the record change. You can see the golden key mark. This is also going to be the symbol which symbolize the primary key, and you can see the allow null checkbox automatically unchecked. It's because the primary key is not going to be empty in any record, so that's why allow null checkbox is unchecked, and default value is set to no default value. That means it's not going to store any values by default when we are not inputting values to that table. But we have to auto increment this attribute, so we have to change this default value to auto increment. Then this attribute is going to increment every record when we are adding new records to the table. Okay, here I'm going to add the second one. We completed the first one, and here's the second one, brand. Brand, and I'm going to change the data type to Vacha. Yes, Vacha, and I'm changing the length to character length to 45. And here's the model. It's also going to be a Vacha attribute and a character length of 45. And I'm going to change the default value to no default value. I don't want to store 0 when there's no value inputting by the user. So I'm changing the default value to no default value. Okay. Here's the other two attributes. Quantity is going to be int, and the price. Okay. Okay. Here I'm changing the attribute name to QTY and changing the data type to int. Here's the other attribute and the last attribute, price. I'm changing the data type to double. Okay. Here we completed our table, and let's the table is not created yet. We have to press the save button in order to save this table. So I'm going to press the save button. You can see the table is created. You can go to the data tab and see the table. Here's the table, and here are the attributes in our table. And let's go to the other part of the question. We completed the second one. Here's the third one. Insert the data into the product table you created. Use the data in the product table above. Okay. The question didn't specify that we have to use queries, or we have to we can graphically insert the data, but in this case I'm going to use the queries in order to insert these data into our table. So let's see how we can do that part. Here's the query tab. We are going to execute our queries. I'm going to write an insert query to our table. You already know how to create insert queries because I already covered that in our in a previous video in my question series, but I'm going to explain one of first one to you. You have to use the insert keyword. The keyword insert. Here's how we start a insert query, and you have to define the database name where we are going to insert our data, and also I forget to tell you, insert into this we have to define two keywords, insert and into database name. Here's the database name, next computers, and here's the table, product. Okay, here we defined our database and the table we are going to insert our data. In this case, you can specify the data. You don't need to insert every field, because the ID field is going to insert automatically by the MySQL server. So we have to just enter. We just have to enter these four attributes. We have to enter the data according to these four attributes. So we have to specify those four attributes. So I'm going to specify the attributes. When you are specifying any attribute, you have to use this gray question mark. It's placed in your keyboard at the left side of your keyboard and above the tab key. You can find it easily, and here's the we have to define put the attribute name between those inside those two gray question marks. Okay, I'm going to define the first one. It's called brand, and then model, quantity and price. Okay, brand, model, QTY and price. Okay, here are the four attributes we are going to insert our data, and then you have to define the keyword values, and here we are defining our values. You have to use these two single quote symbols and put your value inside those two single quote symbols every time you are inserting any value into your query. Okay, I'm going to insert the first one. Yes, the first one, HP Pavilion. Quantity is 15 and price is 1,75,000 rupees. Okay. In this case, we are not going to insert the ID. It's going to insert automatically by the MySQL server, because we defined it as auto increment. You can see I complete the query and let's execute this query and see whether this query is okay or is there any error in our query. Okay, you can see the query executed without any errors. That means data should enter to our table. Let's refresh this table. You can see the data are inserted into our table, and here's the ID. It insert automatically to our system, to our table. I'm going to fast forward this other uh, queries. I'm going to insert. I'm going to use to insert our table.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless. Burning the bridge that keeps us.
Okay, here I completed all the queries I'm going to use to insert this data into my table. Let's execute these queries by click on the execute button. You can see every query executed without any errors. That means our data will be will show here. In order to do that, we have to refresh this table. You can see every data is stored in our table, and here's the ID. You can see what the auto increment function do. It increment the values of our records when they are uh, inserting to our table. Here we completed third part of our question, and here's the fourth one. The owner of this store has identified the Lenovo brand as the least sold computer brand in his company. He has decided to remove the Lenovo brand from his store. Write the relevant query statement to remove the Lenovo brand. Okay, we have to delete this brand called Lenovo because it's not going to sold in this store anymore. So we have to delete it from this table. In order to do that, we have to use a delete query. So let's go to the HeidiSQL browser, and here's the query tab. I'm going to write a delete query, but before you are writing a delete query, you have to put the keyword delete, and then you have to mention the database name and the table name where your data are going to where the data are stored, and you want to delete from this database. And before that, you have to mention the keyword from. We are deleting from this database and the table in it. Okay, here's the database. Next computer dot here's the table name product. Okay, then we have to mention what are the what are the records we are going to delete. In order to do that, we have to mention the attribute name and a value according to that attribute. So let's go to the question. We have to delete the Lenovo brand, so we have to use the brand name in order to delete this specific brand. So I'm going to define I'm going to mention the brand attribute, but before that you have to put the keyword where. You are deleting data from this attribute and its value. So then I'm going to define the attribute where I want to delete my data. So here's the attribute name brand, and here's the brand I want to delete, Lenovo. You have to use I told you before, you have to use grave accent when you are mentioning a attribute name, and you have to use single quotes when you are mentioning values anywhere or anytime you create a query. So here I'm going to mention the name Lenovo. Let me copy that name from the table, so there will be no errors because caused by any typing mistake. And here we complete our query. I'm going to end this query by typing a semicolon mark, and we have to execute this query. Let's see what happened after we execute this delete query. You can see the query executed without any errors. That means the Lenovo brand will delete from this table. Let's refresh this table and see the difference. You can see the Lenovo brand is not there anymore. All the records according to the Lenovo brand are deleted from this table. Okay, that means we completed our fourth part of a question. Here's the fifth part of the question. The Asus brand ROG Zephyrus M15 laptop is no longer manufactured. So it has been decided to remove this laptop from the database. Write the required delete query statement. Okay, it means this specific laptop is not going to come to this store anymore because it's not going to manufacture anymore. So we have to delete this laptop and the records according to that laptop in the product table. So we have to use another delete query in order to do this action. I'm going to the delete tab, and let me clear this query. Here I'm going to create another delete query. You have to use delete keyword first, then from, then you have to mention the database where the data are stored, and you want to delete from this table and the database. Okay, here's the database name, next computer dot. You have to always put a dot between database name and the table name. Is the table name product, and then I'm going to mention where I'm going to delete, or what are the data I'm going to delete from this table. But before that, you have to insert or you have to type where keyword, is the where keyword, and then you have to mention the attribute name brand. Let me go to the question. You have to in this case you have to mention the brand and the product name and the model name. so that when we if we mention those two attributes when we are deleting something from this table, or when we are deleting this specific brand from this table, the query will be accurate. That's because if we mention only the brand ASUS, the other records according to the brand ASUS, look, you can see these are the other brands goes with the brand name ASUS. All of them will deleted. But if we use model name, that will do the same to our table, because if there's something like if there's any model like this Roxiferous, it will delete that table too. So if we mention two attributes, the brand ASUS and the model Roxiferous, that will only delete this record. So our delete query will be accurate. So let's define that two attributes. Here I am going to define the first attribute, brand equal Lenovo, sorry, ASUS. Let me copy that name. Okay, first attribute and the value is okay, and here's the end attribute. Both of these attributes and the records should exist in our table product in order to execute this attribute. So only the record belongs to these two attributes, and the values are going to delete from the table. Here's the other attribute, model equal, let me copy the name, Roxiferous. Okay, here we completed our delete query, and then I'm going to execute the query. You can see the query executed, and let's refresh our table and see what are the difference made by that query. You can see the model called ASUS Zephyrus belongs to the ASUS brand, deleted from our table. So that means we completed our last part of the question, and I'm going to stop this video and thank you for watching.